How do I see the movie in 5 years? I think it won't even be called BIM, you know? I think this I think this name will disappear and will be considered just construction and construction as it is and designing as it is. I don't see it BIM as something that will be it will be so effective that it will become invisible, you know?
Yeah, true,
like
true.
like credit cards. You don't even think of credit card as something like cutting edge technology. You just use it all the time as if it's money. And the same thing it would work with BIM. It will just disappear.
This will not buy me a lot of this will not buy me a lot of friends among my colleagues architects. But I think one of the things that is going, honestly, I believe that with the technology developments that we are facing, with robotics, with parametrical design, automation, we are on the verge of a change of paradigm. So we might be facing a new paradigm in terms of the AEC construction. One paradigm where architects will be, or designers, when I say not only architects, but all the designers will become much more a mix between a computational geek and the funky designer that they used to be, right? It's a mix of both of them. And it's a new industry where people will play new roles. So not so much like traditionally, you design the building, right? As we move forward and we start to move towards integration with computational design, I believe that we will start to assist one thing that I like to call human computers co-authorship. So you will not be designing the building itself, you'll be designing the system that designs the building. That's the logic of parametrical and computational design. You actually design a system that allows you to put the queries, and then that system will provide you the final design. You still control it, of course, but it's just a different process. And I think that's going to be a big change in the future, because sometimes we humans are very passionate about things, and not always, I would say even better, is like passion tends to drive us to achieve amazing things, but it's also sometimes blind us, right? We probably, all of us have passed to that phase where we love this, and then after some years you say, how could we love that? It's like the 80s and their fashion style, and then you look now back and say, that was really ugly, but it was super hot when I was young and I was a kid and I was using it, right? And there is this logic that computers can help us on that. It's like when you go to metrics and then you analyze performance with a computer for him is just performing computation. So it's not saying, I really want this to look good. There's not that. It's not biased. It just does it. Of course, any computer, the quality of the answer is only as good as the quality of the data and the quality of the question that you get into it, right? But I honestly believe that we will start to assist to a much more human and machines integration, more collaborative approach. And I really hope that that will lead us to a much more sustained industry where everything is going to be much more. I usually talk about this idea of changing the AEC industry from construction to assembly. So off-site manufacturing, site assembly.
Yeah.
Because that allows you for much more efficiency and less waste.
What do you then see if we look more further, like what would the future hold up for the BIM? Like there has been a lot of talk about the BIM hubs and even BIM blockchains, and a lot of different
Yeah,
things.
yeah. I've been reading about that lately. It's an interesting topic. I think web is definitely the future. I mean, we look at things like Google and Apple and those sort of companies, and everything eventually goes to the web. And I think BIM 360 and those platforms are showing us that is the direction that the big players in the market are moving. So I think eventually we'll get to a point, and I was talking to someone else the other day about this on another podcast, that eventually we expect that probably the software won't be hosted on the hardware anymore, it'll be hosted on the web. And then the way that we all work will change quite a lot. Like, we won't need to carry around these giant laptops everywhere. We'll just need to have a good internet speed, essentially. And I think the software is going to change too. I think things like Open BIM and IFC and those sort of movements have forced companies to get a little bit more collaborative with how they work together, because their file formats are no longer being accepted by the industry. And now they're expecting open data standards. And I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on the major players in the industry, especially Autodesk, because they're still quite isolated in terms of how they work. But I think add 5 or 10 years on, and I'd be pretty amazed if they haven't been forced to, put in consistent IFC standards for exporting data out of Revit and accepting data into Revit. So, and other programs too. Like, I know ArchiCAD's quite far ahead when it comes to that. They've done quite a lot of good work with the Nemetschek group. So I think eventually all the players will have to sort of join the same party, hopefully. And I think the web will probably be where it all happens.
Yeah, I think the Rhinoceros has quite a good challenger for Autodesk at the moment. And for the smaller players like Trimble, Leica, Topcon, it's already seen that they have lost their market potential, because they have had this one ecosystem mindset that, hey, all the people connect with our products and they work inside our portfolio. Yeah. But now when they losing it with open standards, then they start finding the open data platforms.
Yeah, so I think that's probably where we'll go. Like, I know a few companies that are working on like translation programs that can get non-compatible programs to work together.
Oh wow!
There's sort of certain web add-ins that people are trying to put on top of Aconex and platforms like that, such as BIM Launcher, that are trying to get the programs to talk together, even if the companies don't want to make their file formats work with each other. So there is some pressure on them too, that even if they don't do it, someone else is going to.
Yeah, true.
All about market share, and people might start threatening each other's share of the market. So I think there'll be some pretty big power plays in the next 5-10 years, and we're probably already seeing a few pretty big power plays in the background. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all changes. I think we'll probably all still be using the big platforms in like 5 years, but 10 years, not sure. Yeah, hard to say.
Yeah, it will be. I think like the last couple of years, at least in Finland, has been like really active compared to the way before, and then each year it just like increases the changes and happenings, and it's like the reorganization of everything is happening. I think it's really interesting times.
It is funny though, because I noticed that the range of quality across companies is getting wider. So like some companies are just shooting way ahead and other companies are falling behind. So I do wonder whether we're going to reach a point where certain companies just won't have the clients to work with anymore, or if the quality is just going to keep getting wider and wider as we get further and further into progress. But it'll be interesting to see sort of at what point the market can't sustain itself once it doesn't adopt technology to the right degree. I think I have seen quite a lot of companies that they're not adopting the way that they need to, or they might not be aware of international standards that are about to become relevant. I do wonder like the types of companies that will be around in say 10 years that deal with just architecture. Like maybe they might have to expand into like construction as well, or they might have to become like a generative design specialist studio or something like that. They might need to find niches if they don't catch up, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's something that will really, some will go bankrupt and some will go much bigger. I think it's like what I have seen, it's in Finland, most of the projects that we use machine guidance systems that they will need BIM models to utilize. And I mean, it has been like you anymore. It's really hard to win a project if you don't have and don't utilize BIM in construction. And I think that's something like the big change that you either adopt and learn to implement it in your projects, or then then you need to find another business.
Really, I mean, if you don't keep up, you don't keep up. I mean, that was one of the reasons I became a consultant is I could sort of see that there was just so much difference in quality in the market, and I sort of wanted to sort of step to the side for a while and just work with lots of different types of people rather than just one company. And I think I also wanted to just sort of stand back and, learn some more skills on my own. And then, once the market's caught up again, like sort of reassess, like, how I can help them again. So, and it's been good. I've seen a lot of different sort of clients and a wide range of needs. And some of them are, really far ahead, and other ones are just building their first template. So there's a really wide spectrum still of what's available. But it's a very positive time for BIM. I've noticed that everyone that's coming to me is like, they're very positive about it, which is great. Whereas, like I said, like 5-10 years ago, it wouldn't have been the same. So yeah, it's an interesting time to be in the market.
Yeah, definitely. Out of curiosity, when you spoke about companies, no need to any details share, but on the like general spectrum, have you seen a lot of companies, was it an architecture or design or construction, to start developing their own softwares to automate the processes and workflows?
Yeah. I mean, one company that I'm happy to name because it's a positive thing. I used to work at a company called HDR, who are one of the largest firms in the world, and I worked in their Sydney office, and they're actually developing their own software, and they sort of share it from time to time on their social feeds, and it's essentially data-driven design tools. So they've done some really great work with that since I finished up there, and I also worked at Woodsbaggett, and they have quite a well-known system there. I think they've been trialing it in New York, where they essentially have a full city model that they use to find viable sites for development. So there are some pretty interesting third-party sort of efforts that some of these firms are making. At the same time too, some of them don't build software, they use it instead. So like a couple of other companies I've worked at focused more on being in touch with the right people rather than in-housing their development. So they sort of had like sort of attaché companies that they could work with from time to time, and then they could sort of help the development of that company's tools, but then use them in turn. So there's been some interesting arrangements that I've seen, and I think software's always, worth being aware of, like when it's, not available to the full market, because obviously that's where you get a competitive advantage. Whereas if you just use the same program as the guys next door, then there's not as much competitive advantage in what you can do. It's more about how you design rather than the tools you use to do it in that case.
Yeah, and I think the general dilemma with the softwares is that when we have been like really skill and experience focused industry, that the experience has been like the top of the cake. But now then comes the problem that if that experienced guy now switches to another company, all the skills and workflows and processes go to there, and then people have been starting to like thinking like, hey, well, if we start creating our own IP, like algorithmic modelings and softwares, then that is something that no one can steal. That's our competitive advantage.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Having moved companies about 4 times in my career, I know what you mean. we do take IP to make heads with us, like not to use it again, but they do lose a degree of what that all was and how it was set up, which you're right is why it's really important that companies do foster and maintain what's developed for them. I think a lot of companies are really just starting to realize that you can save a lot of time using even things like Dynamo. So to have like a user group inside your company that knows how this all works is like, it's essential now. But I know some companies still have like one person that uses Dynamo, and if that person doesn't, gets hit by a bus tomorrow, like Dynamo's just gone in their company. So it's like, it's a real risk the way some people operate. And I think that having the user group in the company is like really the successful model. I've noticed some companies are developing that. They've got like a computational group inside the company that they focus on. Like HDR, I know they've got a pretty strong computational group, for example. And I think that is like the business model of the future, having like a specialist core that can support the more abstract needs of the company. But to have it just on one person's shoulders or 2 people's shoulders, you're right, it's a big risk. Especially if it's like a third-party tool that you don't control, but all the content that's built for it is what the person knows, because they can naturally just go somewhere else and build it again. Whereas if it's like a third-party tool developed in-house, it's pretty hard for that person to legally just go and take it with them. Whereas if you take a concept with you, it's not hard to rebuild it. But to go and rebuild a proprietary platform, it's just, legally it's obviously a huge risk for the person, but at the same time, it's a lot of effort to replicate as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, of course, if you notice 2.0 idea. They have many of these initiatives that one initiative was the robotics automation. So more and more the construction will be automated. You can see now they have this robot that looks like a dog.
Yeah.
It can walk inside the buildings and take photos and laser scan always the situation inside the building. And I see that triple connected the laser scanning with that, so we can make a real-time scanning on the site all the time. And a lot of companies already flying with the drones, making an almost real-time picture of what is the situation on site. But the more and more you get robots on the site, the more and more they need to communicate together, and also you need to have exactly real-time. So the situation like automatic driving cars in the same way in construction site, and that requires massive digital twin, which is real-time in not days or hours. It has to be exactly seconds late if things are flying and moving in the site. So this kind of measuring data, different sensors, that becomes more and more frequent, and also the automation, it requires systems that control the robots, and that requires the digital model simulation and probably some AI system that controls the robots, that the robots are not colliding and so. But
when do you think
that's maybe a very long future, and you need to be careful that there is a human that is the boss of this thing, so that we don't get any Terminator story. But that is the way where there is going. There are many success stories of using AI already in design. Companies like Sweco, they saving 40,000, 50,000 hours per year only by using AI in design. And that is one thing, of course, the robotics things and automation.
Yeah, I think it was like a couple of years ago in Munich, one of those like surveyor events. I saw there like this size of the robot that looked like a ball, and you send with the USB DXF, and then like just 2D model, and then it starts rolling and makes the street lines and colors all themselves. And it was like really think that we can get to this point of getting like robots and all these machines working themselves. It's really cool, and just like looking forward to see like what kind of like struggles they have with when it comes to the law or anything else, that when people and robots are working at the same site. Like we have a lot of experiences on like mines where we have automatic driving cars and everything like this, but it's always like restricted areas.
And these companies who are developing robotics, they are actually studying quite much about the nature, how insects and other things are working. So quite many robots that they plan, these modern robots, they are following the same rules as insect or worm or ants.
Okay.
Like if you think that any animal who are great builders, they are ants. So maybe the future construction site is not big machines, it's thousands of small machines.
The next big adaptation is going to be have almost all the companies with at least one professional specialized in BIM, more project with at least one model, a simple model with not a lot of level of detail. Maybe the next big thing, the big step is going to be enter to the maintenance.
Yeah, maintenance.
Because here in Peru, anyone do that. I think that's going to be the next big step. We have one company that is trying to do that. They don't have too much support, but with all the things, with all the changes that we are having in these last few years, maybe in a couple of years, the maintenance is going to be the next big step for us as country.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like for us, at least in Finland as well, like the BIM adaptation has been very well utilized in all areas except the maintenance. The maintenance, we call it, it's like the black hole. No one touches it and no one knows anything about it.
Mhm. I think that right now it is somehow reduced just on the design phase. So everybody is talking about BIM in the beginning. It is, of course, it is really important, or it is the thing where a project starts, because there you can influence the costs and the changes and so on. But I think that this development from the design phase will also more and more go then on the construction phase, because what we actually do in design is for the construction.
Yeah.
So the BIM thing, will not be just about the model. The model is just like a tool or a thing which is actually which allows you to do out of the model all these different use cases you have. You have, for example, like for an ERP system, you have for your facility management, or you have for your calculation project, or you have a 4D simulation, whatever. So I think that also on site it will be more and more be present there. And I think that also it will be merged with different technology, like as you said, with drones, for example. It also will implement it then in the model. Then the IoT, I think that all the different machines and so on, it will also interact with each other. The blockchain probably will come then on the model, so it is verified that different stages of a model. You can everything track how the change supply management is, and I think that we're just in the beginning, and it's gonna be a very, very exciting way. And we have right now, we can form it in our way how actually we want to, or we shape the future of the construction site right now.
I believe that in the future should be all the projects done with a BIM, even the smaller ones, because it's just always in this procurement phase, but it should also be pushed forward to the construction side, that they use this our model from the procurement phase, from bidding phase, even on the construction side, and not just use it for to see things visual, but also for the accounting and different stuffs what you can use from the model. So it's not just it's visual there, you can open it, you can cut it, you can see where you have to do things. That's also good, but I would like to have everything just in one project and everything on one place, all the information together, so you can also make the control of the costs during the whole phase. That's our next step. That's what the BIM coordinator, for example, does, trying to push it to the construction side and to make more control first in the step of costs, maybe then in the terms of time scheduling.
Yeah, and especially like when talking about BIM coordination on the work site, I think it's like an endless topic. Like at least for me, when I'm having project, my focus usually is that we utilize as much as possible the like machine guidance models in excavators, and then also getting the information management correct. Because now when BIM has been when we are using BIM enabled tools, like I think you have heard of Infrakit or Trimble Connect or no?
Oh, okay, yeah. People connect.
Yeah, Trimble Connect. You know the IFC combination modeling software.
Okay, I know just People Connect, but that's some platform for the plans anyway.
Okay, yeah, maybe it's a different market, but anyways, like those are those are more closer to this kind of like a real-time model visualization. So for example, when we are building bridge, we can look at the PDFs, of course, but we can also get the model in front of us and we can look around how it is really built. And I think that's something like what I see also. And I think it's very interesting thought about when you said that you are also like you are modeling in the cost estimation phase, because I think it's at least for me it takes maybe weeks to make all the models for the construction, and then usually I start doing those when we win a project. But when doing it earlier, I think that's a really good way to really get it strategized from the start, like all the work plannings and everything, space reservations and so on.
Yeah, we are doing that because we try to minimize the risk. As I already mentioned, after you sign the contract, all the risk is on side of the construction company. So if you do this even in the phase when you're applying for the project, then you can minimize the risk. If you notice the things which won't work out on the construction side, which can cost more. So if you notice that sort of stuff before you sign the contract, you can always say, I put it in a contract or something like that. So it changes the game.
Yeah, for sure.